Metazoa Snapshot is a comprehensive org management solution to help maintain, manage, clean up, and optimize your Salesforce orgs. Visual workspaces with intuitive tools help to reduce complexity and simplify workflow. Just drag, drop, and connect. Optimize your org and lower the total cost of ownership by identifying which assets are used the least and cleaning up unused fields and metadata. Quickly restore metadata in disaster recovery situations by scheduling automated backups or taking snapshots on demand. Easily manage releases and migrate metadata and data between sandbox and production environments while automatically recording deployment history. Visualize profiles and permission sets with mass edit and user assignment capabilities. Compare differences in metadata between orgs and over time, and set notifications to trigger alerts when changes occur. Detailed reporting makes it easy to compare user profiles and manage permission sets across multiple orgs. Reduce complexity with comprehensive org management from Metazoa Snapshot for Salesforce.
We were just a bunch of nerdy kids who ignored the haters. We took their ridicule and we built on it. And when some of us gave up, well, we built on that too. Built resilience, built on a mission to make things a little better every day until the users came. Then the haters were VCs who scoffed at our audacity. This just isn't the way things are done. But we kept building. Users turned into teams, turned into companies, running their entire businesses on our apps. Then the software giants came after us. We weren't proven, we weren't fully featured, our radical cloud model wasn't secure. But we built on. And today, as companies adopt the cloud to move faster, teams are finding themselves slowed down by each other's efforts. The skeptics are claiming we'll never develop innovation at scale. But now, DevOps have come to the cloud, ushering in a new era of transformation. Companies can release on demand across hundreds of environments, innovating faster with fewer conflicts and fewer disruptions. There will always be challenges. There will always be naysayers. And we'll build on.
Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody's staying safe and is well, and I really appreciate everybody joining, and a shout out to my Sacramento crew who I know is online. Thanks for the support as usual. I've got 20 minutes and I'd like to walk through sort of my journey to PD1 and hopefully give you some motivation to take that on. So let's get started with that. I'm Janet Elliott. I'm a technical program manager at a company called POS Portal in Sacramento, California. 4-time certified Lighten champion and also leader of the Sacramento Women in Tech group, which I've been having a lot of fun with. Super involved in the community, and I would love to connect with you on Twitter. That's where I've gotten a lot of my encouragement, celebrating other successes, providing information. There's my Twitter handle. I would love to connect with you there. So what are we going to talk about today? The coveted Platform Developer 1 certification. This presentation is geared towards those that don't have a development background, although it should be helpful for those that do. But it's for those that don't have a development background, maybe administrator, and it seems like maybe Platform Developer 1 is an intimidating thing to sort of dive into. So my main message to you today, and what I'd like to walk through my journey, is to help you understand that you can do it. So first, I've got some good news. I know that every single person on this call, on this presentation, I have confidence that you can do this. I have confidence that you can undertake it and understand the material. So have some confidence in yourself that you can dive into this. The bad news is, a little bit of bad news, it's definitely going to take some work. I'm not here to give you the magic bullet, the magic piece of information. It's a lot of work to undertake. So what I'd like to do today is to go through my journey, and these are the 4 things that sort of spoke to me as I was trying to work through going through the PD1 journey. It's motivation, your mindset, mastery of the material, and mentor. So these are the 4 areas that I would like to focus on. So before you undertake something like Platform Developer 1, you need to be clear on what your motivation is. Everybody is going to have a different motivation for this particular certification. Some people are taking it because, you know, they like to be a full-time developer. Some are taking it to become an architect, or they're on their journey to CTA. Some may just want to understand the platform better as an admin. And some may be a project manager and they just want to be able to talk the talk with the developers or the resources that they're working with. So understanding your motivation to go into it and understanding that people have different motivations, I think, is an important concept. So real quick on my personal motivation, let's see, somebody's raising their hand. I don't know if that's, if you want to look at that. Okay. My motivation, it's important to understand where you're coming from and what's motivating you. For me, I have over 8 years of experience on the platform and a lot of experience with different projects and various use cases. And I have a solid grasp of the fundamentals, best practices, and the idiosyncrasies of Salesforce. So I think it's important before you embark on this is to be realistic with that your background supports this journey. You can't just be starting in Salesforce and then wanting to hop into PT1. It will be frustrating. You need to have some of those basics under your belt. So be realistic about where you're at in your journey and if it's the time for you to take this on. My personal motivation, I'm not interested actually in becoming a full-time developer. That's not why I wanted to take the certification. For me, I'm interested in becoming an application architect, but also as a project manager, I wanted to be able to talk the talk a little bit more with the resources, the other developers, the architects. I wanted to understand more what they were talking about and be more involved in the solutioning. So that was my personal motivation. If your motivation is just to get a higher cert count, have more certs under your belt, this is going to not be an easy journey. It is not an automatic end to getting a job as a developer. So just know if that's your motivation, you know, it's going to be a long haul. If you want to become a full-time developer, this is going to be a great foundation, but it's not going to be the end of the road. It's just going to be the start for you to build on. If you want to become an architect, this is going to be obviously imperative knowledge to be successful to be an architect, but also to be a more informed admin. This is sort of going to change your life. I know that sounds dramatic, but the amount of information that I gained from this and the understanding, it really did change my perspective on the platform. So that's motivation. Then the next thing is mindset. For me, I started on this journey a couple different times and I would start to get frustrated and then I would stop because I just didn't immediately understand the information. And what turned it around for me was sort of changing my mindset. I think this quote is really applicable. All things are difficult before they are easy. So the mindset that you have to go into this with is that PD1 is not like other certifications. It's not like admin or platform app builder. It's not a linear learning journey. You can't just sit down and study it, you know, just open a book and study it and just automatically understand it. It's an extensive amount of information and there's a lot of new concepts and language that you've just never heard before or had to understand. So if there's one thing you take away from this presentation, it's that you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Once I understood that and I sort of made peace with that, it really helped me move forward in my journey. You have to have faith that you'll have some vague understandings that won't be clear right away, but as you move forward and layer on the information, have faith that that information will start to make sense. Also important to find others to vent and share with. You're not alone. For me, I was involved in Rad Women Code, and that community was super important to me to vent when I didn't understand something, to be motivated and cheered on from others when, and cheer others on when they were successful. And that helps you know that you're not alone in the journey. Also, I think it's important to set a realistic time frame. It's not something you're going to do in a couple weeks. You need to be realistic, and that's going to help you stay the course if you're realistic with your time frame. Also, I know a lot of people say this, but I just want to reiterate this. It's okay to take the test and not pass and retry. That's part of the journey for a lot of people. It took me 2 times to pass it. I know people who have taken it 5 times, and then some people pass it on the first time. But just know that's part of the journey and that you have to sort of be in it for the long haul. So mindset is important as you sort of embark on this journey. The next thing, sort of the hard work here that we're going to talk about, is the mastery. How do you even approach this when you don't have a development background and you're not sure where to start? For me, the important thing, and this is the way that I study, was to layer the information. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of different concepts, and it's hard to know where to begin. So for me, you have to have the foundation of the declarative. As I mentioned in the other slides, you have to be comfortable with configuration, data model, process automation. There's a lot of questions about, clicks versus code, and having that foundation is really important. The next thing that I undertook was understanding data types, triggers, methods, classes, and loops, sort of the building blocks of the code. And that's where Rad Women Code came in for me and helped. Once I understood that, I was able to layer information on it. To me, that bar right there was the hardest conceptually to overcome and to really wrap my brain around. And once I did that, I gained some confidence from that to move forward. The next areas that I think are important are testing, debugging, and deployment, limits, SOCL, SOSL, and DML, and also order of execution. For me, these were a little more concrete subjects, easier to digest and understand. Lots of questions on all of these topics, and I encourage you to review the exam guide because it's going to outline all of the topics for you. But that would be my next level of studying, would be those topics. Then it's now 25%. User interface is now 25% of the test. So Visualforce, Lightning components, Aura, and Lightning Web components, those are all on the test. And don't be intimidated because you don't need to be an expert at these. You don't need to be able to fully, from a blank piece of paper, be able to create these. But you do need to understand the building blocks of them, when you would use them. And so it's important to, dive into those and not be intimidated by that. Lightning, Trailhead has a lot of hands-on, modules on these, and it's digestible. You can learn how to do them, and it is very approachable to do that. The next layer would be all of the other miscellaneous things, and there's a lot of them, and they're outlined in the exam guide. But things like system classes, platform events, security vulnerabilities, and of course with Salesforce, best practices. So for those, again, a lot of those are a little more concrete and easier to understand, but just sort of that last layer for me was to go out and grasp some of those various concepts towards the end of my study journey. So a little bit quickly about how I approached studying. Again, Rad Women Code was a huge catalyst for me in getting going and just understanding the basics of that bottom layer of information. Focus on Force for me personally was helpful because it laid out the specifics of each area, and I was able to review it and understand the things that I already knew and identify those things that I didn't, and then take those and go out and maybe do trailheads, ask questions, and explore those more. So Focus on Force really helped me identify that. The other thing I did that I really want to encourage you to do is talk to developers. Don't be intimidated in talking to developers, even if you're really, really new. Everyone in the community is more than happy to help. And you may attend a meeting and you may hear them talking about a really technical topic, and at first, none of it's going to make sense. It's just going to all be over your head. But as you start to layer on the information, you'll hear little tidbits, and then you'll start to gain confidence that you really do understand the information. So I'd like to encourage you to reach out to developers and attend some of those meetings, especially now that we have the virtual community group meetings that you can attend. I've attended developer meetings all over the world at this point and really gained a lot from that information. So be sure to take advantage of that. And then for me also, of course, tons of note cards. I'm a note card taker. I had a huge stack of every possible concept. So for me, that was part of my study journey, was lots of note cards.
Janet, I'll give you a minute to take a sip if you want of something, but we did have two questions. First one, which I think you addressed, is the important topics, and it was before you got to that slide, so I think that one is addressed. But then in terms of time frame, how long did you study? Is it so many hours a day? How many weeks? Like, could you give some guidance on how long to study? Or I know everybody's different, and everybody studies different.
Right, definitely. And it also depends on your personal life and what you have going. I started Rad Women Code last fall. I think it was like October. And then we went into Dreamforce and I was speaking there and I spent a lot of time on that. So I probably lost a month. So I think overall it took me about 5 months of going through Rad Women Code and then really diving into all the different areas and attending the meetings. So for me personally, it was about 5 months. I would do a little bit of time in the evening, but a lot of time on the weekends. So I think it's going to depend on, how much time you can spend at one time. I don't recommend spending huge blocks of time on it because you're just going to start, your eyes are going to start glazing over because it's so technical. So definitely one of the things I would like people to leave with here is that layering of the information. Just be confident that you might read something, you might not fully understand it, but that later on it's going to start to make sense. So I'm sure people might be able to do it faster, but again, it depends on your foundation, where you're coming from and how much you know, what degree of experience you're bringing into it.
Awesome, thank you. And we have 3 minutes left, so I'll let you continue.
I'm just going to sort of snapshot on this slide. There's tons of information out there. I have links to all of these different resources in a slide at the end. So if we share that presentation, these will be available. I want to just highlight, if you're just diving in and you just don't even know where to begin, David Liu's Apex Academy is very layperson explanation. And also Women Code Heroes is the website that Rad Women Code uses. It explains it very basically. It sort of starts to give you confidence that you can understand the information. Just point out there's lots of Salesforce resources, ongoing webinars, and a definite shout out to reading the documentation. All of these guides are written by Salesforce and they seem intimidating to just open up the Lightning Aura Components developer guide and just start reading it like casually. They're very approachable and understandable actually once you dive into them. And a lot of questions come directly from these guides. So I would definitely encourage you to read them. The last point I would like to make, and this is like super important to me on my journey, is having a mentor. If you can identify somebody who's going to help you on this journey, it's going to make all the difference. But I'd like to point out that your responsibility as a mentee isn't to expect your mentor to just convey all the knowledge to you and teach it to you. You have to do the hard work. You have to study the material. You need to go hands-on. You need to try to understand it. And then once you realize that you're not able to, fully grasp it, come to your mentor with specific questions that they can answer or give you use cases on how to apply the information. I think that was one gap I had was I would understand something like an interface, but I wouldn't know where am I going to use that? How is that used in real life? And that's where a mentor is going to really be able to help you. And again, don't be afraid to talk to developers at work, your local user groups, or the Trailblazer community. They're really going to help you. And that was absolutely key to my passing this, was having a mentor that could explain some of those concepts to me. And then last, I just want to explain the benefits, the return on investment that I got from undertaking this. Again, you don't have to want to be a full-time developer. You're going to benefit from this across the spectrum as an administrator, an architect, a developer, a project manager. Like, this information is going to help you in all of these different ways in your job. For me, as mainly a project manager, it's absolutely helped me be more involved in brainstorming and solutioning, and also questioning some of the solutions that have come up and be more involved in that. But as you can see from this slide, it's going to benefit you across the spectrum of the roles that you might have. So just last summary, encouragement to dive in. I got a lot of encouragement from the community to dive in, and that's really what gave me the confidence to start on this path. Start with the basics to gain understanding and confidence. Again, don't be afraid to talk to developers. They're really friendly and they get excited when you start asking them about the concepts, and they would love for you to understand them. So don't be intimidated by that at all. Share your successes and struggles, and definitely reach out for encouragement. Again, there's my Twitter handle. I will cheer anybody on who's going for Platform Developer 1, or I'm also happy to answer any questions that you have. And again, I've got some links in the slides that will be available with a copy of the slides to help you, navigate some of these resources. So in summary, I hope that this has motivated you to give you some confidence to take this on. Know that there's places where you can start that are basic enough for you to layer on the information. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and definitely seek out a mentor, and don't be afraid to get involved in some of the developer discussions and meetings. I think that I would leave it with, those are my final closing thoughts there.
Awesome. We're just 1 minute over. That's okay. Thank you so much.